Hello, everyone. Welcome to the latest edition of the It Girl Lifestyle Vlog. My name is Danae Stephen. My next spotlight is Miss Shantia Coley. She's a transformational speaker and recognized Fortune 500 attorney. As a first-generation college graduate, she is passionate about wellness, leadership in women of color, and inclusion. Thanks for joining us, Shantia.
Thank you for having me, Danae. It's a pleasure and it's an honor.
Now, what inspired you to branch off beyond your Fortune 500 job and become a transformational speaker?
So I've always loved to talk. I've always loved to talk. And I've always also felt that it was a part of my ministry to help, to encourage, to inspire people, no matter what that showed up as. And so I like being an attorney. I love being an attorney, and it does fill my cup. But I always knew that there was something more that could not only just fill my cup, but make it overflow. So I spent a lot of time, a lot of self-reflection on my talents and figuring out how that could translate into doing more. I always felt the urge or the calling to do more. So one thing that was really important for me was to do a little bit of market research first, because I knew there was something I wanted to put out or some sort of organization that I wanted to create. And I live in Charlotte, North Carolina. So in Charlotte, North Carolina, once I did that market research, I realized, wow, there are already a ton of wonderful, wonderful nonprofits. And so I realized that I did not want to duplicate the great efforts that were already being done for disenfranchised groups or for youth. There was whatever you were looking for, you name it, you could check the box, it was being done, or it is being done here in Charlotte. But one thing that I realized was that there was a need, however, for these groups, for facilitators, for moderators, for speakers, for individuals who would come in and put on workshops on various topics. And that's kind of where the light bulb went off. And that's what felt right for me, is instead of creating another organization, why don't I use my talents to teach, basically, and to encourage and to inspire? And so that's how I call it Shantia Speaks. That's how Shantia Speaks was born.
Okay, so how did you overcome the initial fear?
So the initial fear, I think, was rooted in wanting to put out something that was perfect, right? So focusing on perfection instead of just something that was excellent. And there's a big difference between perfection and excellence. If you ever come to any of my talks, you know that I talk about this. And so when you're trying to put out something perfect, you keep waiting for the right time, and you're so fearful of outside criticisms. And that was my biggest thing. That was my biggest holdup. My initial fear was literally just, what if I put out something and it sucks and nobody likes it, right? But I read something that basically says something is better than nothing. Something is better than nothing. And so I didn't really have a highlight reel. I know that a lot of speakers have a highlight reel. I'd spoken before, but I never bothered to take video or anything like that. Nobody thinks like that. But I had some pictures, and I had iMovie, and I had some music that I dropped in the background. And that was my very first highlight reel. And I had WordPress. WordPress is something that's easily accessible to all of us, WordPress and these other website builders. And I just spent some time creating a website that definitely wasn't perfect. And then honestly, I just decided to press the button. Once you put it out there, it's out there. It was far from perfect, but you have to make the initial leap. You have to make the initial leap. So getting over my fear was almost like jumping into a pool when you can't swim and then magnificently swimming. A lot of people had that testimony. They're like, I learned how to swim because I jumped in, and I had to survive or not. Well, once I pressed the button, it was out there. So, there was still fear, but I was one step closer to getting over it because I had already shared the website, already shared my vision, and there's no going back once you start. So I just left. I just left.
Okay, now were there any setbacks or roadblocks along the way?
There were a ton, and in the spirit of transparency, they were all internal. Anybody that I would tell my idea to, I want to be a speaker. First of all, they didn't really know what I was talking about enough to criticize. So nobody criticized. They were all just smiling and nodding like, okay, all right. But it was me. It was the internal critic, the imposter syndrome that tells us that we're not enough. Those were my biggest setbacks, my internal thoughts. those are my biggest pitfalls along the way and still are to this day. And honestly, because we're human, those don't go away. We just have to get better at managing them. And that's what I really work on consistently, just reminding myself, Tia, you're a boss. Danae, you're a boss. You know, like you're fearfully and wonderfully made. You're talented. You belong in the rooms that you're in. Literally just reaffirming myself probably 2 or 3 times a day, especially in the beginning. That's really what helped. But yes, to answer your question, there were setbacks, there were pitfalls, but they were all internal.
Okay. Now, how do you juggle it all? I know you're the mother of 2 twin boys, 5-year-old boys. How do you juggle it?
Ooh, how do I juggle it? So if you're around me probably for more than 10 minutes, you'll realize I don't take myself very seriously at all. And that's helped in motherhood. It really has. I'm not afraid to throw on my jeans, take off my little fancy dress and throw on my jeans and get down on the floor with my boys, you know, even down when they were doing tummy time. Now they're 5, so obviously they're doing everything else but tummy time. I get down there with them. You know, I look forward to seeing my boys every day. They're like an outlet for me instead of an obligation. I like that. They're an outlet instead of an obligation.
Right.
So it doesn't feel like juggling. It just feels like we have a lot of fun together. Obviously, there's an element of parenting, right? I'm rearing them. I'm raising them into wonderful young men. And I do that, and hopefully I do it well. But on the other hand, we spend a lot of time just laughing together, playing together. I don't take myself seriously or them too seriously. And it just doesn't feel like an obligation. I don't feel like I'm juggling.
Right, right. Now, do you have any advice for someone who's just getting started?
Yes, I do. And it takes me back to my initial thoughts on fears. My fears were rooted in trying to put out something that was perfect. And when I say put out something, as a speaker, I just needed to have a good website, right? And so that was what was on my mind. But whatever it is, maybe a product for you or something else for someone, I just wanted it to be perfect. And my advice is to let go of that mindset, let go of that train of thought, because that doesn't serve you. And all that will do is hinder you. All that will do is keep you from moving forward. And a year will go by and you look and realize that you made no progress towards your goal or your dream because you were waiting for perfection. Put something out there, put it out there. And as time goes by, you can better it, right? You can mold it, but you can't mold something that's not there. So just put the product out there, put the book out there, put the podcast out there, put the vlog out there, just start. My advice would be just start.
Right, that's some good advice. Now, how can we reach you if we need some additional information?
Absolutely. So another tip for entrepreneurs, keep everything consistent. So all of my branding is consistent. My website is www.shantiacoley.com. That's SHANTIACOLEY.com. And you can also find me on Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, probably a ton of other things by the name. So all of my handles are Shantia Coley.
Okay, awesome. Well, thanks again for joining us, Shantia. And thank you, the audience, for tuning in. And join us for our next edition where we'll have another exciting change maker on the It Girl Lifestyle Blog. Thanks, guys.